Array is a very simple yet powerful data type. In general, array is a collection of similar items. But JavaScript array is very special where array can be collection of different items as well. Let's start with the basics. So first we will see how we can create an array. Let nums equal to. So in JavaScript, we represent an array using square brackets. So now we initialize this nums array which doesn't have any items. So to add an items to this array, right, we can use push method. Nums.push 1. So now we initialize an array and we added item 1 to our array. So now our array will become 1. So if we are adding one more item, say push 2, now our array will become 1, 2. So if you notice, whenever we are using push method, right? So push method will add an item from end of an array. So basically our item, so initialized with an empty array, after adding 1, it will become 1. Then after adding 2, it adds this number 2 at the end of an array. So let's see. Let's try this out in the console. So now if you see here, now here if you notice, number 1 and number 2 has this value 0 and 1. So what is this means? So by default, whenever you add any items to the array, internally array will create an index for each item. So basically the index is a reference for each item with which we will be able to access that particular item. So in this case, number 1 has 0th index and number 2 has index 1. So in array, index always starts from 0, and whenever you add an item to an array, it will auto increment. And similarly, whenever you remove any item from the array, it will auto decrement as well. So, and one more property, if you see, in array has length property, which is very useful to identify number of elements in the particular array. So if you do nums.length, we can get the number of items in the particular array. So now we have only 2 items. So nums.length, we have 2. So if you want to access any item, we can use this index. Say for example, nums.0 will give 1 and nums.1 will give 2. In case if you are adding any, if you are accessing an array with an index which is not available, you will get undefined because this particular array doesn't have index 3, so it return undefined. Since array can have multiple items, we need to go through an array to know the items in the array. So there are multiple ways to iterate an array. The most straightforward and simplest way is using for loop. Let's say we have an array fruits. So apple, banana, and orange. So in case if you want to add any items directly to an array, you can add comma separated values to this array. So now we can use a for loop. So basically for loop syntax is index 0 index fruits dot length index. So basically index is the starting point. So now from where actually we want to iterate through an array. So if you're starting by this 0, so basically we are iterating the array from 0th index till when we want to execute this for loop. So basically for loop is an continuous statement. Say basically if you are driving a car, you will have one starting point and you will have one ending point, right? So basically you will drive from point A to point B. So similarly for loop, we need to tell the starting point and ending point. Till then actually the for loop will continue to execute this piece of code. So basically here index 0 and index less than fruits dot length. So basically we want to iterate through the fruits array till the last element present in that particular array, right? So index will be 0 and index till fruits dot length. So fruits dot length will give 3. So we want to iterate this loop thrice. So next what we are doing, so after each run, we want to increment this index so that we will terminate this for loop. So now let fruit name fruits index. So now we are trying to access this fruits array, that fruit name using this index. So for the first run, index will be 0 and we will get the fruit name and we can console this. So let's run this one in the console. You see here. So for the first run, we get the index 0. So 0th index is apple. So you will get apple. And for the first index, you will get banana. And for the third index, you are getting orange. So you can ignore this. So this is not part of a for loop statement. This is just because we are running this for loop in the browser console, we are getting this undefined. So only these three statements are actually printed from this for loop. In JavaScript, arrays are mutable. That means we can update an array after creating as well. For example, we have an array 1, 2, and 3. And we are creating a second array and we are assigning this second array with the value of array 1. So now if you print this one, right? So let array 1, array 2. So array 1 is 1, 2, 3. Array 2 is 1, 2, 3 as well. So now we are updating this array 1 of 0th index with the value 5. See, we are updating this array 1 0 to be 5. So if you print array 1, if you see, the value is the 0th index 1 is updated to value 5 and 2, 3. But if you print array 2, the array 2 value also updated with the latest value 5. But this is not we expected, right? So basically array 1, we are updating the value, but still array 2 value also got updated. If you want to know why this is happening, right? So basically in JavaScript, array 2, we are just assigning the value array 1. So basically internally array 2 will reference to this array 1 array. So what happens? So whenever you are updating any value to the array 1, array 2 also will get updated because the reference is same for both these variables, array 1 and array 2. That's why it is important to copy the array instead of directly assigning it to a new variable. So how we can copy an array? So the old school way of copying is using a for loop. So let newer array. So we are initializing a new variable, a newer array with an empty array. So let 0. Similar to our previous for loop, we are iterating this whole array. And what we are going to new array dot push array 1 of I. So now we have an array, newer array. So to this value, we are not referencing to this to array 1. Instead, what we are doing, we are iterating through the array and we are reading each value and we are pushing it to a newer array. So this doesn't create any reference, so that if you see now our array 1 is 5, 2, 3. And if we execute this one, our newer array is 5, 2, 3. Now we are going to update our array 1 of 0 to 0. So now our array 1 value is 0 to 3. But the newer array, whatever newer array we created, right? So this value doesn't get updated. So basically, this is one way where instead of having the same reference, we can copy the elements using a for loop. The other way is we can use the spread operator, newer array 2. So what we are going to do, so this is the syntax for spread operator. So these three dots, what it does means, so whatever we are doing a for loop, right? So internally it will do the same. So basically, in the latest ES6, we can make use of these spread operators. So this array 1 will get copied to this newer array 2, similar to this for loop only. So basically now also, if you are updating any changes to array 1, right, those changes won't get reflected in newer array 2 because we copied the value directly instead of having the same reference. Array have lot of inbuilt methods which will be very useful for array manipulations. Let's see the major ones which are needed for day-to-day programming. Let's consider a use case where you want to merge two arrays. So for merging two arrays, we can use concat method. Let's see an example. So let's consider we have an array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we have a second array 7, 8. So now we want to merge these two arrays. So for that, what we can do, say first array dot concat and second array. So now if you see here, both the arrays are merged into a single array. In a single array, we have all these values 1 to 8. So basically, concat will be very useful in case if you want to merge two arrays. The next one is if you want to get the items within certain range, then we can use slice method. So slice method accepts two parameters. So one is start index, the other one is end index. So basically, both these parameters are optional parameters. Let's use this first array. So first array has these 5 values. So if you do first array dot slice without passing any start index or end index, it will return the whole array. So basically, if you don't pass start index and end index, by default, it will take start index as 0 and end index as end of an array. So now if you pass any start index, say for example 2. So now if you pass only start index, you will get the items only from the starting index of the array. Say for example here I pass the start index as 2. So if you see here 0, 1, 2. So our start index element is 3. So from here you get all the elements. So basically here we are getting 3, 4, 5. In case if we are passing both start index and end index, say for example 2 to 4. So now what happens? So you will get all the elements between the start index and end index minus 1. So basically it will exclude the end index, and from the start of the start index, it will return all the elements. So here start index is 2 and end index is 4. So basically 0, 1, 2, or start index is 3, 3, 4. So this index will be excluded. So it will return only 3 and 4. Even we can use negative index as well. For example, the first array dot slice, and if you pass negative index, say for example minus 2. So now what it will do, it will return two elements from the end of an array. So for example, here -2 we are passing. So here it will be from the last index, only two elements will get returned. So 4 and 5 we will get. Next one is, if you want to format an array, then we can make use of map function. So map function accepts a function which will be called for each item in the array. For example, say we have this first array and we want multiples of 2 for each item in that particular array. Say we have a function multiple by 2. So what it will do, it will get an integer and it will return. So basically we are getting one number and we are multiplying it with 2. So now what we can do, first array dot map, and we simply pass this function. So now for each item in the array, first array we have these 5 items, right? So for each item will be passed to this multiply by 2 function and it will return an array of values. So if you execute this function, see here, we get the values as 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So basically we have this original array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and each value will be passed to this particular function. 1 into 2 is 2. Similarly, 2 into 2, 4. So all the items will get passed to this function and it will return a value. But this map function, right? So this will return a newer array. So that means your original array won't get updated. So original array will remain intact. Only this newer value will be returned using this map function. So now let's see a filter function. So basically, if you want to filter out any values from the array, then we can use filter function. Similar to this map function, right? Filter function also accepts a function which can be passed to this filter. Consider we have a function where we are checking whether the particular number is an even number or not. So to check whether the number is an even number or not, we can divide that number by 2 and its remainder should be 0. So now first array dot filter and is even. The filter function returns an value only if the passed function returns true for that particular item. That means, say we have these items, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for each item, this filter function will be called. Say number 1 divided by 2 is not equal to 0. So it will return false. Then that item will get excluded when we are returning the value. So now 2 will be passed to this is even function. So 2 remainder of 2 is 0. So this condition will be true. Then this function will return true only for this 2. So now 2 will be added to this result. 3 is not an even number. 4 is an even number. So basically for whatever items we are returning true, it will get returned. For whatever we are passing as false, those items will be excluded while returning a result. So similarly, if you want to reverse an array, so in that case, what we can do, we can make use of reverse function. Our initial array is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When we reverse, we will get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Our whole array is reversed. And similarly, if you want to know whether this element is available in the array or not, right? Say in that case, first array dot index of 1. Now if you see, we have this number 1 at the last index, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are getting this value as 4. In case if you are searching for any item which is not available in that array, for example, I am searching for 10. So 10 is not available in this array. So it will return a value as -1. So in this way, we can identify whether any item is available in that particular array or not.